Over 60 lives vanished without a trace. These were not just numbers, they were fathers, mothers, sons and daughters. Each one had a story, a life abruptly cut short. The city of Paris, already reeling from the horrors of war, was plunged into deeper despair as loved ones disappeared, leaving behind only questions and heartache. They disappeared into thin air, swallowed by the chaos of war-torn Paris. The once bustling streets, now eerily empty, seemed to hold their secrets tightly. The city, with its grand boulevards and hidden alleyways, became a labyrinth of fear and uncertainty. Families clung to hope, scouring the city for any sign, any clue that might lead them to their missing loved ones. The year was 1942. The world was engulfed in the flames of World War II, and Paris, the City of Light, was under the oppressive shadow of Nazi occupation. The air was thick with tension, and every corner of the city seemed to whisper tales of sorrow and loss. The once vibrant cityscape was now a canvas of despair, painted with the grim realities of war. The city, once a beacon of art and culture, was shrouded in fear under Nazi occupation. Iconic landmarks, now draped with swastikas, stood as grim reminders of the city's fall from grace. The streets, once filled with the melodies of street musicians and the chatter of cafe-goers, were now patrolled by soldiers, their presence a constant reminder of the ever-looming threat. The streets, once alive with laughter and music, echoed with the heavy footsteps of soldiers and the whispered anxieties of its citizens. Every face in the crowd bore the weight of uncertainty, every glance a silent plea for normalcy. The city's soul seemed to have been stolen, replaced by a haunting silence that spoke volumes of the collective dread. Among them lurked a predator, hiding in plain sight. In the midst of the chaos, he moved with calculated precision, his intentions masked by a facade of normalcy. The people of Paris, already burdened by the weight of war, were unaware of the sinister presence that walked among them, preying on their vulnerabilities and fears. His name was Dr. Marcel Petiot. To many, he was a respected physician, a man of science and healing, but beneath the surface he harbored dark secrets, his true nature hidden behind a mask of benevolence. As the city grappled with the horrors of war, Dr. Petiot's sinister deeds went unnoticed, his actions blending seamlessly into the backdrop of a city in turmoil. Dr. Marcel Petiot was a name whispered with respect, a beacon of hope in a city crippled by fear. He was a physician, a man of science, sworn to heal and protect. His patients trusted him with their lives, unaware that their faith was tragically misplaced. For behind the veneer of respectability, a dark truth festered. Dr. Petiot was not who he seemed. World War II had cast a long, dark shadow over Paris. The Nazi occupation had plunged the city into chaos. Fear was a constant companion. People were desperate to escape the clutches of the Third Reich, willing to grasp at any glimmer of hope. Dr. Petiot, with his charming demeanour and air of authority, offered them just that, a chance to flee the occupied city. Dr. Petiot offered a lifeline to those desperate to escape. He promised safe passage to Argentina, a land free from the tyranny of war. He preyed on the vulnerable, the desperate, the hopeful. Jews seeking refuge from persecution, resistance fighters wanting to join the Allied cause, anyone yearning for freedom. They flocked to him, their hopes high, oblivious to the nightmare that awaited them. Section 5. The House of Horrors. This chapter delves into the chilling history of a seemingly ordinary house that concealed unspeakable horrors within its walls. At 21, Rue-le-Sueur stood a seemingly ordinary townhouse. Nestled in a quiet Parisian neighbourhood, it blended seamlessly with the other buildings, giving no hint of the dark secrets it harboured. Behind its unassuming facade, a chamber of horrors awaited. The interior was a stark contrast to its exterior, filled with shadows and an eerie silence that seemed to whisper the tales of the atrocities committed within. It was here, within these walls, that Dr. Petiot orchestrated his gruesome deeds. A respected physician by day, he transformed into a sinister figure by night, using his medical knowledge for malevolent purposes. His victims, lured by false promises, were ushered into his lair, unsuspecting of the fate that awaited them. They believed they were seeking refuge or medical help, but instead they were stepping into a nightmare. The doctor's chilling transformation was complete. He had become a predator, preying on the vulnerable and the desperate. His once compassionate demeanor now twisted into something unrecognizable. He was no longer a healer, but a hunter. The house at 21 Rue Le Sueur became his hunting ground, a place where innocence was lost and evil thrived. The walls of this house, if they could speak, would tell tales of unimaginable horror and suffering. Section 6. Unmasking the Monster. The stench of death finally betrayed Dr. Petiot's carefully constructed facade. The authorities, alerted by the overpowering odour emanating from 21 Rue Le Sueur, made a horrifying discovery. Hidden within the bowels of the house, they unearthed the gruesome evidence of the doctor's crimes, human remains, burned and dismembered, a testament to unimaginable cruelty. Section 7. The Bone Collector's Confession. Dr. Marcel Petiot, a man whose name would become synonymous with horror, was finally captured after a daring escape and an elaborate disguise. His arrest was nothing short of dramatic, as he remained defiant until the very end. The police had been on his trail for months, and his capture marked the end of a terrifying chapter in Parisian history. In the courtroom, Petiot spun a web of lies, attempting to paint himself as a hero rather than a villain. He claimed that his victims were collaborators, enemies of the state who deserved their fate. His passionate speeches and elaborate stories were designed to confuse and mislead, but the truth was far darker than his fabrications. Petiot portrayed himself as an underground operative, a member of the French resistance who was executing Nazi informants. He wanted the world to see him as a patriot, a man who was willing to do whatever it took to protect his country. But this narrative was a smokescreen, hiding the gruesome reality of his actions. The sheer scale of his crimes was staggering. The evidence presented in court was overwhelming, with stacks of documents, forensic reports and witness testimonies painting a chilling picture of his guilt. Each piece of evidence was a nail in the coffin of his defense, making it impossible for him to escape the truth. The butcher of Paris had been unmasked. Dr. Marcel Petiot, once a respected physician, was revealed to be a cold-blooded murderer. His expressionless face in the courtroom was a stark contrast to the horror he had inflicted on his victims. The trial was a moment of reckoning, a time for justice to be served for the countless lives he had destroyed. Section 8. The Wheels of Justice. The trial of Dr. Marcel Petiot sent shockwaves through a city still reeling from the war. The courtroom became a stage for the unimaginable as the details of his crimes unfolded. He listened, seemingly emotionless, as if the horrifying testimonies were about a stranger, not him. The evidence was overwhelming, the jury's verdict swift and decisive. Guilty. Section 9. Legacy of Fear. On May 25, 1946, Dr. Marcel Petiot met his end. The guillotine fell, silencing the man who had instilled terror in the hearts of Parisians. But the scar of his crimes remained. Dr. Petiot, the respected physician, the trusted confidant, was exposed as a monster. His tale served as a chilling reminder. Darkness can lurk beneath the most unassuming facade.